Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the Doc of Detox show. I'm Dr. Darrell Wolfe, and today's show is Hope Restored with the Honorable Paul Hellyer. Before we begin, please join me on Telegram, where you can find exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. Just go to t.me/docofdetox.com and understand, everyone. I will be putting on Facebook what I can put on Facebook, and I'll be putting on Telegram what belongs on Telegram. I think you get the message. Also, for our weekly newsletter, go to docofdetox or itioh.com and enter your email to subscribe. One last thing, join us on the world, and I do mean the world's most powerful self-healing library at docofdetox.com, where you can uncover and discover the power to heal. So let me talk about my honorable guest. Paul Hellyer is a Canadian engineer, politician, writer, and commentator. He is the longest-serving current member of the Privy Council of Canada. Paul is here today to talk about his most recent book, Liberation, The Economics of Hope. So let's begin the show. Good day, Paul, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get right into it. Can you tell me what you're up to and what your next plan, or what does it look like, your strategy for economics of hope?
Well, let me start briefly at the beginning. I came into politics a little over 70 years ago because I was a child of the Depression, and I saw poverty at its worst with the people walking along the street and looking for a bite to eat of some kind, riding the rails, getting pushed off by the police, and all of this sort of thing. And so after the war, I was in the forces for about 2.5 years. After the war, I went to university to get even with the government for wasting my time. And my interest became economics. And I came to the conclusion that despite the fact that my professors thought that recessions and depressions were part of the system, I became absolutely and totally convinced that they were not. They were monetary phenomena. There has never been a recession or a depression that was necessary. So I did the impossible in a sense. I think I got a lot of help from somewhere and got elected. And then, of course, there was no immediate need because the war in Korea broke out, and these guys that run the world can print money to win wars when they can't do it to build houses or heal the sick or whatever else they should be doing. And so I was given my period of learning in the Parliament, and then about 10 years later, I became Minister of National Defense. And that was a tremendous challenge. But the whole driving force for going in and staying in has been to change the monetary system. And I'm still working at it. And when this pandemic came along, I said, this is going to melt down the system. Going to be a lot of unemployed. There's going to be a lot of poor people again. There's got to be something different done, and that is that the Fed has to be nationalized and taken out of private hands now, once and for all, because the international monetary system is nothing but a license to steal from the people who actually create wealth. And it's made a number of people multi-trillionaires, while other people are starving or haven't got enough money to be sure whether they're going or not they're going to be able to pay the next month's rent. And so it is just part of my latest book, but it was probably the thing that propelled me to write it now and to go all out and see if we could get some interest in that, which I think is one of the two things that has to be done first, because you've got to get some money to do the things that have to be done next, which is like stopping the global warming and doing a lot of other things. And we've got to get that underway. But the question is how to get anybody's attention. Because one of the things that, as you know, that I've been interested in is the fact that the United States and its people are under great danger, not from external forces, but from internal, due to the fact that their country was taken over decades ago by some Nazi scientists that were brought into the United States, and they got their hands on the levers of power. And they joined up with the bankers and the oil barons, and they have been in control ever since. And the people don't know it. So what I'm trying to do is to get a foot in. I had 2 or 3 presidents in a row who promised me that, at least friends of presidents who said, we can get one of your books into the president's hand. I said, you know them well enough for that? Yes, absolutely. Never did, never happened. Gatekeepers are always there to make sure that you didn't get any novel ideas into the hands of the leaders. And so now I have decided, and it's just in the process of being implemented. I'm sending my latest book, plus a private letter, an open letter, to the Congress and people of the United States that their country and their lives are in peril, and that they've got to do something, and they've got to do it right away. And I send it to every second congressman, every second senator, and also to the government leaders, because I thought with that many going in, somebody has got to read it. A lot of them won't, but somebody's going to read it. And maybe we can get a discussion going. And then I'll follow it up with a press release in 2 or 3 days in the hopes that we can get a few column inches in 1 or 2 of the papers and get some attention. And I'll call on some of my old friends in the business to help and to go all out in a combined effort at what has roughly been called disclosure. So it is a disclosure effort in order to give the American people the information that they need to save themselves from a terrible disaster that could happen to them if they don't know about it, and consequently don't do anything to try and prevent it from happening. Well, that's where we stand at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, what about Canadians? Aren't you a little worried about Canadians? I mean, look who's in charge. I mean, seriously. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that, who's in charge of our country is like absent. And anytime we hear from this person, they say the most ridiculous things. So, I mean, Paul, what about our country?
We're just an appendix of the United States.
We're what?
It's an appendage of the United States.
That's it, eh?
Yeah, and just almost as bad as a 51st state. And the same people that are really running the United States have control of ours. And we have to go to the core. We can't do it on ourselves. There's some things we could do on our own. We could start changing the system if we had the right people in the right places at the right time. That's worth working on. If there's ever energy left after what we're doing now, but you've got to get your hands on the Fed, because they are running the show, because they have the last say on who's going to have jobs and who isn't, and who's going to be a billionaire and who isn't. And that's been going on for far too long, and it's got to end, and it's got to end now,
that's just so corrupt, Paul, that, I don't even know. I mean, I get what you want to do, but, nobody's been able to come even close to these people because it's not hard to buy off a human being.
Absolutely, you're right, dead on.
You couldn't buy me off if you tried, and I'm telling you, you couldn't buy me off if you tried. A lot of people will say, "Oh, Dr. Wolfe, you run a business." Yeah, I run a business where I wouldn't be able to do these shows, but the reality is, I will never be ruled by money ever. And the reality is you know what? I've got trouble right now in my business because of people that are ruled by money in my business. So the reality is that it's not hard to corrupt a human being that isn't awake, and most people are not awake.
That's right. We've got to awaken them.
Yeah, I understand that.
For years, they've been bought off. It goes back at the time the Fed was put into being. They took right away, according to who was my friend Ellen Hodgson Brown, they bought either the papers or the control of the editorial content from the 25 most powerful papers in the United States, so that any criticism of the kind we're making now could never get in them. It's all taken out, sieved out before it gets there. And the same thing has happened since then with the control of the government and the so-called effort to establish a new world order, with a great depopulation of the world people. How much, no one's quite sure, but they're talking about large numbers. I hear that the head of one of the broadcasting organizations in the United States said that 500 million might be a good population for the Earth. Well, what about the rest of the billions? What are they going to do with us? And how are they going to do it? And these are things that I discuss and try and get the people's interest in, because not only my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are involved, but all the children of the world are involved. And so you're absolutely right. The system is so corrupt that the thought of changing it is just almost beyond anyone.
Yeah, and if I can say this, the people that are, I'm not saying that I know, Paul. I'm not saying I know anything, but the reality is there's just so much information out there, and it's like crisscrossing on top of itself, and between, and I don't want to bring this up if you don't want to talk about it, but between, it just seems like most of these people that are actually in control of the planet are Satanists, or they're pedophiles, or they're so corrupt that what would ever make them change? Nothing would make them change. What would make them change? It's like trying to tell me, Daryl, I'm going to change you into a pedophile. I couldn't be that if I tried. How could they be something else? I mean, these people are built different. I don't even know. Are they human beings, or what are they? They're so bloody corrupt. And the reality is everybody says, well, they'll get theirs. You know that David Rockefeller actually had 7 heart transplants. Now, human hearts. 7 heart transplants. That must be a bloody record. He lived till he was 110. So the reality is when will they get theirs? Who's going to get them? And the reality is do you really believe that wall can be climbed or crawled under or broken down?
I don't know, but at the end of my letter, I say that the United States will never be great again until there is a spiritual revolution. Because the Satanists have to be driven wherever they're going to be driven, and the good, decent people who are working toward a higher level of consciousness at the present time, and there are a lot of them, and they're having some success. If they keep on going, you only have to have about maybe 1 or 2% successful in order to start changing things.
Right.
It's got to start somewhere, and that is really the challenge that I'm throwing out to the Congress. Mm-hmm. They've got to set up these 5 committees that I've recommended, and they've got to get witnesses who know the truth to state it, because then the press has got to cover it. When I say it, the press doesn't have to cover it. But if the Congress starts getting the truth out from people who were there, who have been underground, who have bored the holes, who have done the things, all the things that have happened, who have heard the people in charge saying that they're going to reduce the population and can give witness that they've actually heard that being said, and so on, that has got to be reported if it's given to a bipartisan. And I start right out by saying that it's got to be bipartisan. The Democrats and the Republicans have to work together arm in arm, or there's no hope for the United States.
Right.
There's only one way to go. And if they get the truth out, and if they start getting it into the mainline press, people will begin to pay some attention. But that's the only way you can do it. And that's the reason for my little operation. And I know that I'm going to have a lot of help and a lot of support from a lot of little people like me that want to see a change in the morality of the people and have the world switch over from the darkness, the Satanists, to the light, which is God the Creator.
Yes, sir.
And that's the way it's got to go.
Can I ask you? Can I break in and ask a question? And this is, and please, there may be no answer, or you may not want to answer it. What do you think of that whole fiasco with Trump? That he won, that he didn't win, that he got pushed out, or and then the whole thing about he's going to come back and all this stuff. And I know it could get really nonsensical, but the reality is, okay, the rabbit hole may go so deep in so many directions. And because they've been plotting and planning this for so long that nobody knows up or down, because the good guys are the bad guys now, and the bad guys are the good guys, and politicians are now doctors. I mean, everything is so messed up, Paul.
I can't comment on American politics directly.
Yes, sir.
Because I just got through saying that Democrats and Republicans have to work arm in arm to save their country.
Do you think that could ever happen? Really? Seriously?
Well,
who has the power? Who has the power to even do that?
Well, the individual members of the two parties. Not just in Washington, but out in the boondocks. Mm-hmm. If you can get 1 million or 2 or 3 million people writing to their congressperson or the senator and the president and saying, we want these committees set up so that we can get the truth and know what the truth is as a starting point, a launching pad to save our country, then something will happen, but not until. They've got to have the facts, which they have. The facts haven't been on the table for 70 years, since Roswell. They start out with the day that the one crash was retrieved. There were 2 crashes, as you know. But the one that was retrieved, I think it was on the 8th of July that they came out with a press release saying that the CEO of the local Army Air Corps, as it was then, put out base there, the bomber base.
Yes.
Put out saying we recovered I don't know what they called it, but a saucer, I think it was, something like that. And it was in the local papers. And unfortunately, later that same day, it was rescinded, and another press conference was held by his superior, who said that was a mistake. It wasn't a saucer. It was a Robin balloon for looking at the atmosphere and reporting on the atmosphere. And that was a lie. The first one was the truth. The second one was a lie. But the second one became the, as I call it, foundation stone of 70 years of telling lies misinformation and disinformation, so that the people haven't had a clue. And I put this statement in 2 or 3 of my books.
Which books? Which books?
Well, the latest one and the three before it.
Can I show those? Do you mind if I do? Everyone, so Light at the End of the Tunnel.
That's the first one.
Yep. Can you tell me about that one a little bit?
Well, that was my grade 3 or grade 2 beginning of expositions.
Yep.
And it's still selling, actually, and people are getting some enjoyment and information from it. Okay. And then the Money Mafia.
Here's the Money Mafia, everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody can still get these books, too, on Amazon, correct?
You can get them on Amazon or from my website, yes, either one.
And your website is, sir?
It's paulhellierweb.com. That's Paul Hellyer, HELLYER .web. No, just paulhellierweb.com. And if they want an autographed copy, that's the place to go for it. But if they want to get the book the next day, well, maybe Amazon, I don't know.
And then here's Liberation, the Economics of Hope.
That's the latest one.
Yes, sir.
There was one in between there, Hope Restored.
Yep, and here's Hope Restored. My apologies for mixing them up.
You've got all 4 of each one was my last book.
There you go.
When I wrote the one Light at the End of the Tunnel, I thought, this is your magnus opum. You've given them all you've got, you know.
Yeah.
Years later, I found out all these things we're talking about who was running the country.
And who is running the country?
Well, it's the cabal that's running the country. And they have been and still are.
Who is? Do you know who specifically the cabal makes up?
Well, I don't know the names, although I've seen lists of the people, and I think they're available on the web
they are
internet, and so it's not too difficult to find out. And they're the ones that have been pulling the strings, and they're the ones that control the press, and they're the ones that control the country, and they're the ones that want to control the world.
Well, they're not going to give it up easy, Paul. You know that. I mean, come on. You know the love of power, right? When you've got the love of power instead of the power of love, I don't know how you're going to get them to. They're not going to give it up.
Well, they're not going to give it up voluntarily, but then there is such a thing as changing people and getting people interested in doing something.
I agree with that.
I see every year somebody's taking on the big guys with some project.
Yes.
And everybody says, you can't do that. But they do it. How do they do it? By going at it and staying at it and not giving up. Just whittling away at it until something happens.
Yes, sir.
And you say, wow, I didn't think they had a chance. And if you look at it that way, they haven't. But if you look at it the other way, say, we'll start working at this, and we will keep working at it and working at it and working at it until something finally happens, then something will happen. And that's for sure. But it would take the effort of millions of people putting pressure on the people in Washington, which is greater than the pressure put on them by the cabal, and getting them to say, we want to find out who's running the armed forces. We want to know who is loyal to the United States of America and not to the New World Order. We want to know what's going on inside here and who did what to whom. We'll give an amnesty if people tell the truth, because you can't expect somebody to go out there and incriminate themselves and get hung for it. But you can if you give them an amnesty and get them to come, and Stephen Greer's got a whole list of people who would just love to give testimony. And there are other people I know who would do the same. And I know, so could give them a couple of names, who would just love to tell the people of the United States about all of the things that they don't know that they should have known as taxpayers and as citizens of the Republic.
Right.
And that's what's got to happen. It has to be a determination to the point where when the irresistible object hits the road or whatever, that it just keeps on going until something moves.
I hear you loud and clear. So what steps could you take? Like what steps would you tell the average person they should start taking? What should they do?
The average person should write to their congressperson or their senator or the administration and say that we want you to set up the 5 bipartisan committees that Mr. Hellyer is recommending.
And can you tell us what those are?
Well, they're the 5 plagues, basically, that we went over, I think, the last time.
Do you mind going over again for those people who didn't?
I don't remember them all, but certainly,
Yeah.
Money is the big thing, and as you have to act there. Global warming, we're burning the planet. We don't need to. The United States has had access to zero-point energy for decades and decades.
Which means free energy, right?
Yep. And it was, I think, a man by the same name as you have, who in a radio broadcast 20 years ago said that the United States Armed Forces had developed both cold fusion and zero-point energy. And if it had been put into effect then, that most of these people in Texas who have no power could have a little zero-point energy heater in their basement, and they wouldn't be freezing in the dark, as the saying goes.
Well, there's people that are actually dying right now from that have actually died from that, and there's all kinds of fires happening because people are trying to stay warm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this was not necessary. This is the terrible result of privileged people, multi-trillionaires, saying we're going to take every ounce of money out of the surface of the earth before we will worry about the planet itself and whether or not it's going to be here for future generations. We don't give a damn about the planet, really. All we care about is making sure that we get the last barrel of oil or the last cubic meter of gas out of the ground.
Well, I know of a gentleman and who has studied and gone all over the world, and he has seen countless energy devices that are free energy that just pull energy from nothing. So, I mean, it's been around forever and a day, and we know, like you just said, until there's not a drop of oil left, right?
Right, but the cosmos is full of energy. It is made of energy.
Atomic particles, right?
Yeah, atomic particles.
Yes.
And it's there, and it's available, and it's free, and putting it into effect would provide millions and millions of jobs everywhere in the world. We could just tell the guys that hold the patents, go jump, because this is a bigger thing than you, and nobody has the right to say that you can control the future of the world, and that you can through having performed something that just is part of the system, you can put up a barrier to the future of the planet. That is not something, and there are rules that say that you can just ignore the patents under those circumstances. I can't name them at the moment, but I saw a couple of them written out not too long ago. And you just say, I don't give a darn if you have the patent. we're going to start building them as soon as we can put up a factory to do it, or to convert a factory from one of the places that's making armaments and start building 0 point energy heaters and engines and all of the other things that need to be done.
Yeah, it's all about energy, money, and food, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's basically it's greed and money and power, and those are the things that are satanic. There, in the first book that you showed, Light at the End of the Tunnel, there's a chapter on the world says, the word for money, another word. Anyway, it rules the world, and that's true. That it has been, it is, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, but it rules the world because actually our beliefs rule us, and most people have poverty consciousness. Most people believe money is hard to make. Most people believe that they don't have the genius to actually to live their passion and purpose. I mean, you've done that all your life, but think about all the people you know, family members and friends and people you've met that lack confidence, that don't lack the courage that you've lacked. I mean, that you have, to come up against the things and know that you're going to get negative feedback, but you did it anyway.
Yeah, remember the Second World War? Give me a man, stout-hearted man.
Yeah.
I'll soon give you 10,000 more.
Yeah, well, where are the men today, Paul? Because I'll tell you something right now, I don't see them anywhere. I see a lot of women speaking out all over the place right now and finding their Braveheart roar, but I really don't see a lot of men, powerful men. I don't know where they've gone.
Well, then you have to change and get the women involved. They are involved.
They are involved. They are. Women are involved, and you know what? They're the protectors now.
We have had huge meetings of people on saving the planet in Montreal and elsewhere. Thousands of people, most of them women behind it. Little Swedish girl that got people all whipped up, and they're still going, and they're showing their colors. And then the Aboriginal people who care about the land, who care about the planet, who have a direct connection with the land and understand how the system really works. They're helping. So there are people, and we'll just have to get these forces all joined and moving in the same direction and take the Wizard of Oz out from behind the curtain.
Now, do you believe what a lot of people are saying is that civil war is coming?
I certainly hope not.
I understand that. I know hope not, but what do you think?
Well, I think if we get going fast enough that it won't.
Yes, sir.
That's what I think, because I know there are a lot of people who would like to have a civil war, but they're self-interested. They want it their way, not the way that's necessarily good for their compatriots. And the whole thing that we've been talking about here is designed to go the other way and say, no civil war, but a civil coming together of decent people of love and compassion for the benefit of everyone. That's the alternative.
Yes, sir. I was also reading something yesterday, and you know Yelp, Y-E-L-P. Anyways, on Yelp, they actually made a statement, and they said at the rate that it's going, 60% of the people that have small business on Yelp would not be reopening next fall.
Yeah. Tragedy. And as a small businessman, I had to buy a small business to get a place to live after World War II. My wife and I had to wind up getting a ladies' ready-to-wear store, about which we knew nothing, in order to get a small apartment up above. And so I know exactly how the system works. I've been there. And I know if you make the mistake of when you start running for parliament of advertising one party in your windows, that you're going to lose the customers who vote the other way. So I learned a lot of things like that. And what we're talking about here is finding somebody, and this means changing the money system so that it's not all going to a few people, who says, yeah, we'll save the small business because they are the heart of the nation. They're what make community community. They're not the ones that crack a whip over you and have to say you've got to get it out in 65 seconds or whatever. They're the people who will talk to you if you're going in to buy something and give you some advice. And who, on occasion, I went into a small business once when I needed a new tap. That's a water tap. And he says, you don't need to get a new one. He said, the parts maker are still in business. They're a good outfit. They're honest. You just get in touch with them and they'll give you the parts and you can fix it. There are people like that around still. And we could, if we spend enough time working together, get more people who would say, sure, I'll fix your something or other and it won't take me 15 minutes and just forget about the sending out the bill.
Very good. I have a question that somebody wanted me to ask you. I hope it's okay. They wanted me to ask you if you believe that they could have actually level the playing ground, not with the ones that are actually creating the playing ground, but where we will own nothing and where we won't be going to work anymore, where we're staying home. Do you believe that it'll ever come to these ridiculous rules that they're talking about?
I certainly hope not, because it's impossible. It's just baloney. It doesn't matter how you can it. If you want to do that sort of thing, I suppose you could manufacture it, but there are so many things to do, like holding the hands of the old and building some parks and changing the slums into decent little cottages or apartments. About cleaning up the mess of the earth that we've been making and recovering some of the stuff we have stuffed under the crust and get it out and make it usable. There's a lot of work to do, and I don't mean, I'm not a slave driver. I drive myself fairly well because I'm driven to try and do something useful. But I believe that there can be enough work, useful work, for every single person in the world if you don't have to raise taxes from greedy men in order to pay them.
Absolutely.
Because they won't pay. The first thing they do, they get in an office and they cut the taxes for the rich. And so it's there are things that can be done, but small business, I know not all of it can survive, but most of it can if it gets the kind of help that our government in Canada has been giving to the oil companies and others, so that they can keep going.
Well, let me ask you another question. What's wrong with people? Why do people believe the lies all the time? I mean, there's so much corruption in politics, and people actually believe lies. I can't believe people actually get behind the blue or the red or rah rah. And you know what? Everybody's just lying their pants off. I mean, everybody's lying, and it's just like everybody gets away with it, and people actually believe it. I mean, have we became that soft and that lazy that our minds don't even think anymore, and we just don't. We don't question authority, and we allow anybody to be an authoritarian over us. I mean, don't you think that's where we're at right now? Wouldn't you say that?
I just pointed out that the government of the United States has not told the truth of anything of significance that I can think of from 1947 to 2017.
There it is. Okay.
That includes some people who died mysteriously, and 9/11, and they haven't got the truth out on those yet. So, yeah, they've managed to keep a huge lie about extraterrestrial peoples and their visits to our world, and the fact they've been coming here for thousands of years, and the fact that there are some living amongst us now that are going to try and help us and are helping us, thank goodness. And they have not told the truth about any of these things in 70 years, more than 70 years. So why they tell lies? Because people will believe them. If when this whole business of keeping the UFO secret started, why I'm sure you are familiar with the Magic 12, and they set a bunch of rules in dealing with sightings, so that if somebody had a sighting, they said, well, it was Venus or whatever, or they would say, and this was on one of the. If you get down to the bottom of the list, say, well, the person who was saying it is a little bit cuckoo. He's an old man, doesn't quite know his left hand from his right hand, and just don't pay any attention to him. These were rules that were actually set by the people who were in charge of the extraterrestrial file from the earliest days, starting back right after the war.
Okay, can I ask you a question? So if there's aliens here, okay, and they're helping us, why don't they get involved and help to take the cabal down? Why don't they do that? Or is there some kind of universal regulation or some kind of, I don't know,
Well, they did have the Galactic Federation. I'm sure
I've heard of
familiar with that. The Galactic Federation of Light did have a rule of non-interference. And that was really because the Creator gave us the power of choice. We could make dumb decisions or good decisions.
Yes, sir.
We could make greedy decisions or generous decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way we're made. And so they, in effect, can, sort of stew in your own juice kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way things are going now, I know they're more interested. And one of the reasons they're interested is because we started playing with matches. When we put off the first atomic bomb, they said, hey, the universe is one, or the cosmos is one. We are one. And every one of those bombs that goes off affects the rest of the universe. And here are these guys, totally without any restrictions or restraints, just playing with these things as if they're going to blow up the world because they've got the biggest ones and get them there first. And we've got to do something about it. And that increased the volume and frequency of visits to our planet very, very much. And they started coming and they took an inventory of every stockpile of uranium and of fissionable materials and all of the atomic plants, power plants, the whole thing. They've got it all down in their whatever they record things on, and they are, I think, I know they have in some cases taken active interventions, and there may be more. And I wouldn't say that there won't be more. Frankly, I hope there will be more. And I think that they would be very pleased to have the cabal taken down. So, but I can't speak for the Galactic Federation of Light. All I can say is that I know them. I know what they think well enough because we're on the same wavelengths to know that they wouldn't want to see that sort of thing continue.
So, you know, a lot of people are thinking right now, how could the ex-defense minister actually be talking like this? You know, like you don't talk like the ex-defense minister of a country.
Sorry. The fact that I was Minister of Defense, it was a job to do, and I think I did it pretty well, even though a lot of people didn't think so, because I unified the Army, Navy, and Air Force into one. And then you start running into people who say, well, you're changing the uniforms, you're doing this and that, and you're destroying our traditions. One of the problems in the U.S. today is they have 6. And I think if you started adding up the cost to the American people of having 6 different services, it's multi-trillion. So I'm probably a little different, right, in a sense. I have, you know, I was in the Air Force first, and I loved it. So I don't knock anybody or anything because I know what those poor guys put up with.
Right.
I was down there at the lowest level, and I've been there and done that. But I also know that there's a better way of doing things, and that you can't solve the world's problems by starting wars.
Or by being narrow-minded, or not by opening your mind, by not opening your heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, that's the thing, eh? If it doesn't match, if something you say or do, especially today, doesn't match someone's beliefs, they just put their hand up like this. Nope, don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Not hearing it. And I think that's a big problem for us, you know, that we need to really, you know, we're never going to have different if we don't do different, right, Paul?
Yeah, people are like that. And I guess we have to invent better ways of saying, could you just stop and listen for a minute? Can you give me a few seconds of your time?
Yeah.
Because I start talking about money, and you can just see the people's eyes glaze over and start rolling over and, you know, thinking about the cows in the pasture or something or other. And it's tough. And it's tough to keep going for 70 years. But if you believe in something and you believe in it enough, you can't say, well, to you know what, with the people, let them stew in their own juice, because you don't think that way. You think in the way as they can have a better life, and all people can have a better life, even the ones that have billions and don't even have time to love anybody. If they would just change their ways a little bit and be a little more open-minded and realize, as I've said before, that love is the glue that holds the cosmos together, because we are all of these same particles. We're all sisters and brothers. We're all siblings. And we have to start thinking that way and be concerned about our brothers and sisters, regardless of the color of their skin or of their financial system or their organization of government or whatever, and start caring about them as individuals, and try and do something about it to give them a more a better outlook, hope, reestablish hope.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our guests with?
No, I think we've pretty well covered the waterfront, as the saying goes.
Yes, sir.
Just to reiterate that they can't just listen and do nothing. If they do, they're doing a disservice to their country, to themselves, to their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids, and to the future of the planet itself. So they have to listen, they have to make an effort, they have to do their bit. And if everyone does their bit, something will finally change, that's for sure.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for joining me for part 2. And Paul, would you be so kind as maybe come on in the spring and let us know how things are going with you and your little adventure, big adventure?
I'll be glad to come back when the daffodils are on and the springtime has come and the birds are singing and everything is looking good.
I want to thank you, Paul, and but I mean this. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to have somebody that has sat in your position and to be so open-minded and be so heartfelt and connected to universal love is a blessing in itself, sir. And I really want you to understand that you mean a lot to me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope that you'll continue with your crusade. And I will certainly can do what I can possibly do.
Crusaders together, my friend. Crusaders together. You have a beautiful day, Paul. God bless.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Everybody, that was the Honorable Paul Hellyer, and he was the defense minister. And understand, I know that he said some things that are a little outside the box, but we better get outside that box, don't you think? We better open up our mind, okay? Like a beautiful flower, and embrace the new, embrace the sunshine, and start focusing on and what you want to see. But understand, it takes more than that. We need to take massive action in our personal lives. We've got to retrain our brain. We've got to master our mind. And we've got to look after this beautiful gift called our body, our temple that was given to us for this earth experience that we call emotional. And we're emotional beings, and we need to really understand our emotions and be able to master them and stay in the present moment. So when you're in the present moment and connected to your breath, that's the best gift you'll ever give yourself or someone else. So I'm going to leave you here, but I do want you to understand something. Be the change that you want to see. And just hang on for another couple moments and join me. I call it the Braveheart Oath. Have a beautiful day, and as I stated, God bless everyone. If you're looking for life-saving and life-changing information, well, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to click and subscribe. Stay connected.